Namaskar and good afternoon. I wish to welcome you all to the talk program this afternoon on the emergence of enduring peace, stability and progress in the Korean Peninsula, post-US North Korea Summit evaluation, jointly organized by the Center for Diplomacy and Development and the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in Kathmandu. My name is Anishma Gautam and I will be your Master of Ceremony for today's program. Now, may I request our Chief Guest Ambassador Kesav Raj Jha, Founder President of the Center Ambassador Mr. Mohan Krishna Shrestha, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Mr. Park Hyung-sik, Moderator of today's talk program, Professor Ganga Bahadur Thapa, Guest Speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Kim Hyung-wook, Deputy Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Korea, Mr. Lee Yong-jing, former Foreign Secretary, Permanent Representative, and Ambassador to United Nations, Mr. Madhu Ramanacharya, former Foreign Secretary and former Deputy Under Secretary General at the United Nations, Mr. Gyan Chandracharya, and Dr. Sanjeev Humagai to come to the dais and have their respective seats. As we all know, a new situation is developing in the Korean Peninsula. The lasting peace and stability has emerged lately. On the other hand, first ever US North Korean Leaders Summit had ended last month in Singapore. In view of such dramatic improvements, the Center for Diplomacy and Development has organized this talk program to know more about the issues. I now would like to call Chief Guest Mr. Kesav Raj Jha. Ambassador Jha is the former Ambassador of Nepal to France, former Chief to Protocol, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, former President of Nepal Council of World Affairs, and he has served as the immediate past President of Associate of former Career Ambassadors of Nepal Afghan to inaugurate this program, a light in our traditional Sakunda. And the country. It has been registered with the concerned government agency as an NPO, which is independent, business, diplomacy, education, journalism, law, management and tourism sectors. The establishment of CTD as a think tank under track to diplomacy is the culmination of such desires. Promoters of CTD firmly believes that with the gradual solution of the political process of economic development, we firmly believe that we need peace and development, and these two are indivisible. We at CDD solicit positive and constructive suggestions and opinions from like-minded people. It also seeks cooperation from all in its pursuits to
Ambassador, Park Yun-sik, Your Excellencies, Ambassador from different countries, diplomats, Moderator Professor Gangawal Thapa, Speakers Professor Kim Hyun-ho, Ambassadors Madhuram Acharya and Gyanchandra Acharya, and Dr. Sanjeev Magai, distinguished personalities from various walks of life, friends from media, TV and journals, ladies and gentlemen. To all our distinguished guests, on behalf of the Center for Diplomacy and Development, I would like to extend a very cordial and warm welcome for attending this function. We have organized this program jointly with Korean Embassy to hear important and useful information and thoughts on the issues of topical importance, that is, about the seminar summit between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which was held on 12 June in Singapore. It is indeed a very positive step that has heralded a new era of friendship and cooperation, ending long simmering hostilities. Professor Kim has come specially from Seoul to give his remarks on the issue. Similarly, we have invited distinguished ambassadors, acharyas and scholars to give their views. Distinguished guests, geographically situated in the northeastern side, Korean Peninsula has remained divided since the end of war in 1953. Both Koreas have many commonalities in race, language, food and cultures, yet they have remained divided into north and south since last 65 long years. Despite remaining at the state of belligerency for so long, Korean people have made tremendous economic progress. They are indeed one of the very hard-working people in the world. They have led their countries with steady determination. North and South Korea have yet remained poles apart in the political system. In the past, some efforts have been made towards the establishment of the lasting peace. Two former South Korean presidents have visited North in this regard, but not much progress could be achieved. However, on 27th April last, an unprecedented event happened. Chairman Kim visited South Korea, crossing the demarcation line at the Panmunjom. Similarly, President Moon also set foot at the North Korean territory for the first time. Such a newfound camaraderie set an outstanding environment for the establishment of peace. Both leaders signed a Panmunjom declaration with the ultimate objective of denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. All the Korean people, as well as friendly and peace-loving people around the world, pin hope on the successful implementation of this declaration. I asked this question with a fear in mind that my own daughter is studying in USA. However, time has dramatically changed now. An inconceivable and unprecedented event has happened on 12 June 2018 in Singapore. US President and North Korean leader Kim held a summit and established friendship. This is a very positive, important and historical meeting of far-reaching consequences and importance to Korean Peninsula and world at large. We welcome this historic meeting between two leaders. A lot of works are to be done in coming days. An environment of mutual trust and confidence has been established. It must be buttressed by further mutual confidence building measures. No matter how good an agreement is, its effects lies in its successful implementation. Otherwise, it would be a tantamount to a piece of paper. We do hope that this newfound bonhomie between US and North Korean leaders will pave the way for the establishment of lasting and enduring peace, progress in the Korean Peninsula in the long run. Peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula can be achieved through the peace process based on denuclearization. Nepal has friendship with both Koreas. Nepal has always pursued a policy that there is no alternative to the peaceful reunification of Korea. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, peace builders are stronger than warmongers. Those leaders who work for the establishment of peace are well remembered and respected. Peace is inevitable for our human race to survive. Peace and development always go hand in hand. To my mind, three leaders, US President Trump, Chairman Kim, and President Moon all worked vigorously for the establishment of peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula. A new bright morning has dawned with a great prospect for peace and stability. It has given a new hope for millions of people living in this part of the world to live in peaceful atmosphere. If leaders who work for peace are to be recognized and awarded, all above three leaders qualify by all accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Shrestha, for your remarks. In this time, I would like to welcome Ambassador of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Park Hyung-sik, for his remarks.
Chief guest, honored guests, ambassadors, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to co-sponsor this talk program on the emergency of peace, stability, and progress in the Korean Peninsula, together with the Center for Diplomacy and Development in Nepal. Let me start by expressing my sincere thanks to founder and president of CDD, Ambassador Mohan Krishna Shrestha, and all others who has made tremendous efforts to organize today's program. My thanks go to Professor Kim Hyun-woo from Korea National Diplomatic Academy and Mr. Lee Yong-jin from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for traveling all the way to Nepal to share their insight with us today. I'm especially delighted that we are able to prepare this program at a time when dramatic developments has unfolded on the Korean Peninsula, paving the way to a new era of peace and peaceful resolution of the North Korean nuclear and missile issues. After remaining conflict of Cold War and writes new history of peace and cooperation on the Korean Peninsula, President Moon went on saying that this is just the beginning and there may be many difficulties ahead, but we'll never go back to fast again and never give up on board's journey. History is a record of people who take action and rise to a challenge. We are now witnessing truly pivotal developments being unfolded on Korean Peninsula. The two Koreas and the United States are on the complementary tracks of dialogue and cooperation, so that advances in the Korean and US-North Korea relations can proceed in the same direction at the coordinated pace, replacing decades of hostilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the hostile division of the Korean Peninsula has been lingering legacy of the Cold War in Northeast Asia. We have now historic opportunity to abolish this barrier to peace of the Korean Peninsula and strengthen the focuses for peace in the region and beyond. I hope today's valuable discussions will further your understanding of the recent developments in the Korean Peninsula, and with your support, our government will continue to work together with the international community towards establishing lasting peace in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Park Hyung-sik, Ambassador of Republic of Korea. Now,
It's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you the current situation for the Korean Peninsula and our policy vision toward peace. This afternoon, let me briefly first review the other case, policy vision toward peace, and then talk about key events in recent inter-Korean relations, including 2 inter-Korean summits. Finally, followed by joint statement at the US-North Korea. Next, I will explain the key aspects of the Kathmandu Declaration. The Kathmandu Declaration consists of 3 aspects: improving inter-Korean relations, easing of military tensions, and establishing a permanent and solid peace regime on the Korean Peninsula. First of all, the improvement of inter-Korean relations. Relations between the 2 Koreas have been strained since the case of a number of exchanges and cooperation efforts between the 2 Koreas in various fields. Considering that there was little exchange between the 2 Koreas until the end of last year, this is remarkable steps. In the field of the military, the 2 Koreas discussed ways to ease military tension in the general level military talks on June 12th. The 2 Koreas agreed to implement their agreement in 2004 to prevent accidental military clashes in the West Sea and to restore military communication lines in the West and East Sea regions. In the field of sports, South and North Korea are pushing forward forming unified teams for the 2018 Asian Games and having the South and North Korean athletes march together at the opening and closing ceremonies under a unified flag, and holding a series of basketball matches as well this week. In the field of humanitarian issue, the 2 Koreas agreed to hold a reunion of separated families on August. In the field of railway and road, they agreed to conduct a preliminary joint research for traffic network connections.
These are the people who are known for reversing their statements once in a while. President Kim cancelled, President Trump cancelled the summit just before it was already taking place. Can they reverse their decisions?
The neighboring countries. But thirdly, I would also say that it will have a both the positive as well as the negative spillover effect on other countries in the region as well. We all know that peace, stability, and progress in this interdependent and interconnected world is very much a business of everyone. Now, for example, a country like Nepal will also be impacted positively as well as negatively, whichever way the inter-Korean, the dialogue and the Korean Peninsula peace and stability goes, because we have a very good relationship, as we already talked about, with all the countries in the region. And also that the peace and stability is a global public good. You can only do, and then all the countries in the region as well as the superpowers, everybody is involved in the process of the Korean Peninsula. That's why I think it should be a business for all of us to see to it that the Korean Peninsula will also have a peace, stability, and progress. Second, of course, is there is a long the common interest and the moral the point of view that nuclearization as well as the development of missiles and trade as well as the gaming. All of these are something that we should all criticize, but also that we should work to make sure that these things are not repeated and these things are resolved. So there is a moral issue which is involved in seeing that the Korean Peninsula also has peace, stability, and progress. And we all know that there is a long history of this Korean issue going back to the Cold War, and in fact this is only one which has not been resolved after so many issues of the post-Cold War era has already been resolved. Therefore, Korean situation from our perspective also deserves improvement and transformation. Whether all these things that we have just heard will really lead to our transformation, we'll wait and see, but we all should encourage to make sure that the process that has been started has implications for the region, the process that they have started has implications for the global peace and security, and therefore that has to be really taken to its logical conclusion. Now, we all know that there were a lot of inter-Korean as well as the six-party talks in the past. We have gone through the periods of crisis, periods of installment, periods of tentative progress, as well as, of course, back to the the negotiation. So there is a long history of this up and down But the thing that we really see here, which is perhaps a little different than in the past, is that we are not only looking at Korean, the Korean Peninsula denuclearization. We are looking at the peace treaty. We are looking at the reunification. We are looking at all of that in a very much changed context in the Inter-Korean Peninsula. And when people talk about unification, oh, this is a very big thing. It's very.
I like your intelligent presentation, and I am jealous in that. So now we have a very prominent scholar from South Korea, who is a professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Not only he is a professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy, his research also include US-ROK alliance, US-DPRK relation, and not.
Sorry, I have bad eyes. So let me just talk to what I think about the North Korea-US summit. As many presenters have made their opinions, I think the summit meeting itself has very important meanings. I think there might be several. First one is, of course, they got together to denuclearize North Korea. And in exchange for that, the US has to give some measures to guarantee the regime security of North Korea, leader Kim Jong-un. But I think one important thing is that two leaders finally met together. They have never met each other in history. During the Cold War period, never, and even after the end of the Cold War period, I think there were times that Kim Jong-il and President Clinton was about to meet each other, but because of President George Bush was coming into power in the United States, the meeting itself was not made. And another important meaning, I think, is that this could be a very important geopolitical change in Northeast Asia. I might explain later more in detail, but this is something that, of course, Deputy Director Lee mentioned about the contents of the summit, 4 contents. I think one of the important contents is that they're establishing a new relationship. I think it's more important, maybe more important than denuclearization, maybe more important than peace regime in the Korean Peninsula, in the sense that it is very much related to the geopolitical shift in Northeast Asia. Briefly talking about some of the historical background of how we came here. Let me just begin with what happened last year. I think you might be but actually the last year was the final year of North Korea to build up its nuclear capabilities. So-called Kim Jong-un's dual policy platform, which is on one hand to complete the nuclear capabilities, but on the other hand develop economically North Korea. Last year was the final year of completing the nuclear capability of North Korea. So last year, even though there were sanctions by Trump and even possibility of military strike on North Korea, he continued developing and testing missiles and nuclear weapons. But finally, this year, early this year, with the New Year's, President Moon Jae-in did a lot of work to bring North Korea into dialogue. He's, I don't want to call it moonshine policy, that's a very negative term. Moonlight policy may be a much better term. It has worked. He persuaded Trump a lot. He, sent a lot of messages to Kim Jong-un about the dialogue. That I think would have worked some part of it. Second one is that I think the sanctions definitely have worked. North Koreans say that sanctions were not the main reason that the Kim Jong-un came into dialogue, because in the 1990s, during when North Korea was in the middle of hardships and the sanctions, they were ready to persevere with sanctions, because the purpose was to persevere with sanctions. But now North Korea says that, okay, our objective changed. Our objective now is not to persevere the sanctions, but to overcome it and economically develop. So sanctions itself would be no big deal. But sanctions, Kim Jong-un might have some new perception in his mindset. I mean, he is the one that has been, maybe he doesn't like it. He wants to make his people happy. I mean, that would be right. Trump mentioned that several times. Oh, he's a very bright man. He is very serious about making North Korea a normal state, make North Korean people very happy and wealthy. Maybe that would be right, but I think that still, President Trump and Secretary Pompeo says that CBID is the executive of the United States. But sadly, the joint statement, CBID was not in the joint statement. It was not stipulated. I think that's not the major request by North Korea. I think what North Korea needs is the lifting sanctions. They want sanctions to be lifted in exchange for CBID. I think that's something that U.S. and North Korea wants from each other. And that's why the joint statement, there was no sanction lifting, there was no CBID. So only complete denuclearization was something that was stipulated in the joint statement. I think one more thing we have to take a look at is that both leaders, Kim Jong-un and Trump, wants this process, the North Korea-U.S. dialogue and the denuclearization process and pro-peace process. Because Kim Jong-un, if he breaks it, of course he already have made a very solid relationship with China. Maybe what he wants is the economic development and wants the sanctions to be lifted. But Trump says no, it's something that would be possible only after the CBID is, in some part completed. So it comes to China, okay, let's have a deal, okay, you provide me some support, economic support, and China and Russia goes to the UN Security Council to nullify the international community sanctions. But Trump, okay, I don't want to have a dialogue. Then Kim Jong-un loses all the influences on China. I mean, he doesn't have the leverage to control China. That has been, and nuclear warheads should be, taken out to the United States territory because CBID is taking so long. I mean, Trump says that okay, I'm going to complete the CBID by 2020, but
according to the schedules. And I am told only 5 questions will be entertained. Anybody? 5?
PhD from South Korea, and I recently back to Nepal, and I'm working in a Korean NGO here in Nepal also. It is my great honor to sit in front of you here, and in fact I saw I'm a PhD in comparative politics, so I think I cannot give you some big insight, but I can at least give you what's happening and all the stakeholders for ongoing peace process on behalf of all Nepali people. And personally, I dream this kinds of peace summit will organize one day in Lumbini, because this is the best place for peace summit in the world, I think also. When it happened, because I would like to emphasize on when, let's imagine if it was happening in early 1990s or late 1990s, then we might have called this as a democratic summit, or this summit for international trade liberalization or something, because we're living on that global order. But the order, I think, is changing now. So the when matters, most important to evaluate this summit. The second one, I will talk about the actors, because what are the signposts or what are the points to be evaluated in the futures? Since we have the guest speaker after me, summit was happening in June 12. So maybe like they were thinking about less burden about the summit if it failed. It's a joke one. So one of the important points going to happen is that you can see the South Korean and North Korean leaders have met 2 times in the past. The first summit was happening in the mid of the Kim Dae-jung regime. So he regenerated this one-time policy. And if you see the second one summit, but for President Moon, he made just 1 year after getting elected. So he has 4 more years.
Will it be entertained? Anybody?
Why US deny visa to North Korea? I read this news on 29 June on Republica that US deny visa to North Korea.
Council for Affairs here, and someone very interested in international development and diplomacy. I think the presentations we heard today are very excellent. And I tend to agree with most of the analysis prepared by Professor Kim.
I'm not a particular admirer of both of the people, President Trump nor President Kim. But I'm happy that both of them are sitting together and having a dialogue. My question to Professor Kim was that, given the fact that, I would like to give the benefit of the doubt to President Kim.
Thank all the panelists for the expose, which was full of information and a lot of new things to me. But I would like to say that there is a regime created by the United Nations called NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. Only Ambassador Gyanchandra Acharya.
But we see at the top level, the South Korea is very familiar. Through different our students are studying in Korea, South Korea, and we have direct flight from Nepal to Kathmandu to Seoul also. But you see, except in a very official program, you write a Republic of Korea. But normally when you say Korea.
What kind of measure would be? I think there should be some initial steps of North Korea to denuclearize itself. And afterwards, I think in response, maybe US and North Korea can initiate normalizing relationship. For example, having some representative offices in Pyongyang and Washington, D.C. Once that's set up, I think maybe they will begin to issue visas to each other. I'm not sure. But still, we have to wait for some steps, initial steps to normalize their relationship. Their relationship is not normal. Still, North Korea is in the list of state-sponsored terrorism. They are still called by the United States National Security Strategy rogue states. They are still called as dictatorship. So they have to remove all the animosities and normalize the relationship. And that's something that can be happening in response to some kinds of measures of North Korea. Most important thing is whether Kim Jong-un is really serious about quickly dismantling nuclear weapons. Who will be supervising denuclear? I don't think I'm not anybody who has capability to carry nuclear weapons should not be inside South Korean territory or air territory, through the U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises or not. And final thing that North Korea mentioned was about that even U.S. forces in Korea should be the targets of denuclearization. So that's the difference. But
there are 4 points in that statement, and with regard to the denuclearization article, the subject is the DPRK. But when you look at other 3 articles, the subjects are United States and North Korea. For example, North Korea and United States will pursue a permanent peace regime, etc. But when you look at the denuclearization article,
for the democracy, for the freedom, for the liberty, and liberalization. I think the North Korean issue is not going to, on that perspective, even Professor Kim says that some sort of spillover effect through the functional approach, the international community will take these issues. If then the main issues will be the economic development or progress of North Korea, then I think the 2 major issues comes there. The first one is who will burden the cost.
If we remember correctly, it was the United Nations General Assembly decision that put the international forces against the North Korean invasion to South Korea way back in the 1950s. So there is already a very long history of involvement of the United Nations in the whole of the process. But again, I think it was right as Ambassador Madhuman Acharya said.
Respect for the principle of sincerity. In post-summit press conference, President Trump stated that US will be stopping the war games. Many security experts criticize this decision as risky and hasty. Their concern is President Trump did not consult the Department of Defense as is able to live together in harmony after unification is achieved. North and South differ from each other in numerous regards. This is entirely a separate question from whether North and South will ever successfully attain unification. Once we enter a negotiation, we are moved from the abstract to the real, from mythic to sensual. When this move takes place, it is to make peace with truth. The first stage is usually to create trust and confidence, followed by agreement over the elements.
Mr. Keshav Raj have to share some of his.
First of all, I would like to thank all participants who enlightened and increased the contribution of this seminar. And at the outset, I would like to thank the Center for Diplomacy and Development to Mr. Shrestha for organizing this meeting to shed light in one of the most recent topics which is under consideration globally. So I would also take this opportunity to thank two professors and scholars from Korea and my two colleagues who serve in the United Nations as permanent representative of Nepal, who made this issue more clear, enlightened, and to the relevant of the United Nations Charter and the which framework. So with this remark and the contribution of Professor Gangabahadur Thapa and our other colleague Mr. Gumagai, they also contributed a lot in reaching the discussion on this topic. So before I conclude this, I would like to just quote President Trump two lines after the signing of this.
Namaste, good afternoon, annyeonghaseyo. The world knows that the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 and resulted yet into ceasefire in 1953 divided the Korean Peninsula. Yes, this horrific atmosphere has still hit the lives of the Korean people. But long-run diplomatic breakthrough on the Korean Peninsula after 65 years of tense ceasefire that brought hostilities between North and South Korea have landed to almost an end. After a short one-to-one meeting in Singapore on 12th of last month with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, US President Donald J. Trump returned home in a jubilant mood. And President Trump immediately tweeted saying, everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. I have solved results. Last but not least, I would also like to extend a very sincere thanks to Mrs. Monica Petra, the General Manager of this hotel, Yak and Yeti, for her worthy cooperation that we received to make this high status program a grand success. We hope we will get this kind of your warm support, kind love and valuable cooperation in future days too. Dhanyavad. Thank you. Kamsahamnida.